Hello, and welcome to our today's story. The Abandoned Asylum, exploring its dark history. Today, we're taking you on a journey through the dark history of the Abandoned Asylum. For years, this eerie and decaying structure has stood as a monument to the horrors of the past. And now, we're going to take you on a tour of its haunted halls and show you the secrets that lie within. As we wander through the crumbling corridors, we'll uncover stories of madness, suffering, and despair. From the forgotten patients who once roamed these halls to the sinister experiments that were conducted within these walls, the Abandoned Asylum holds a dark and disturbing history that's waiting to be uncovered. So, join us as we delve into the mysteries of this eerie and unsettling place. But be warned, what we uncover may shock and disturb you.
I had always been fascinated by the abandoned asylum on the outskirts of town. Its imposing facade and the rumors of its dark history have always intrigued me. So when my friends and I decided to explore the asylum, I was thrilled at the chance to finally uncover its secrets. Together, we entered the abandoned asylum on Halloween night, armed with only flashlights and a sense of adventure. We had no idea what awaited us within its walls, but we were determined to uncover the truth behind its dark history. Little did we know that our exploration would take us on a terrifying journey, one that we would never forget. As we walked through the old asylum's creaky door, I couldn't help but feel a chill run down my spine. The air smelled musty and was damp, and the sound of our footsteps echoed through the empty halls. With my flashlight, I showed them the way through the dark and scary place. We made our way through the first few empty and broken down rooms. The walls were coming off, the floorboards were creaking, and our flashlights were the only way to see. Sarah walked with me, and even though it was creepy, she didn't seem to be scared. I had to admire how brave she was. As we went deeper into the asylum, it seemed like the darkness got thicker around us. The air felt thicker, and the silence was too loud to be heard. Alex, who is always skeptical, said that the strange sounds we heard probably had a logical reason. But even he couldn't deny the unsettling feeling in the air. When we turned the corner, we saw a long, dark hallway. The wallpaper on the walls was coming off, and the dim light made shadows that looked scary along the floor. Michael, who was a horror movie enthusiast, joked nervously about how this felt like a scene straight out of a horror film. But I couldn't help but feel like he was right. As we walked down the hallway, we heard a faint whispering sound coming from one of the rooms. Rachel, who was always sensitive to these things, stopped in her tracks and pointed in the direction of the noise. We cautiously approached the room, our flashlights illuminating the doorway. But as we peered inside, we saw nothing but darkness. Suddenly, we heard a loud bang from the room across the hallway. I felt my heart racing as I turned my flashlight towards the source of the noise. Alex suggested that it was probably just the wind, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone. As we entered the room, our flashlights revealed a rusted old bed and a table covered in dust. But as we approached the table, we found a pile of old papers and files. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. These were patient records from the asylum, detailing cruel treatments and horrifying experiments. Sarah read aloud from one of the files, describing the mistreatment and abuse of the patients. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I realized the true extent of the asylum's sinister past. We continued to explore the asylum, uncovering more evidence of its dark history. We found a room filled with old medical equipment, another with empty cages, and yet another with padded walls. The longer we were there, the more the darkness seemed to consume us. As we made our way back towards the entrance, I couldn't help but feel relieved that we were leaving. But as we stepped through the doors, we heard a faint whispering sound coming from inside. I turned to look back, and in the dim light, I thought I saw something move. We quickened our pace, eager to leave the asylum behind us. But as we walked away, I knew that the darkness that lurked within its walls would never truly leave us. As I ran up the stairs, my heart pounding in my chest, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being followed. Every now and then, I would hear a faint whisper or catch a glimpse of a shadow moving in the darkness. When I finally reached the main floor, I saw that the others were gathered around a table, poring over patient records. They looked up as I entered the room, concern etched on their faces.
What's wrong?
Rachel asked. I saw someone down in the basement. I replied, my voice shaking. Or at least, I think I did. The others exchanged nervous glances before Michael spoke up.
We need to keep going,
He said.
There's still so much we haven't uncovered.
Reluctantly, we set off once again, our flashlights casting eerie shadows along the walls. As we explored, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It was as if the asylum were alive, breathing, and pulsing with a sinister energy. And then we came across the room. The one that would haunt me for the rest of my life. The walls were lined with shelves, each one filled with jars of murky liquid. As I peered into one of the jars, I saw what appeared to be a human brain floating inside. My stomach churned as I stepped back, tripping over something on the ground. I looked down and saw that I had stumbled over a pile of patient files. I picked one up and began to read, my hands shaking as I took in the horrific details. It was then that I heard it. The scratching. The same sound that I had heard in the basement. I turned to the others, but they didn't seem to hear it. Did you hear that? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper.
Hear what?
Sarah asked. But then, we all heard it. The scratching grew louder and more frantic, as if something was desperately trying to claw its way out of the walls. We followed the sound, our hearts racing with fear. And then we came across a locked door. We tried to force it open, but it wouldn't budge.
We need to find a key.
Michael said in a tense voice. We each went our own way to look for a key. I was in a hallway with rooms on both sides that were empty. As I walked down the hall, the sound of the scratching got louder. I found it at last. The plan. It looked like someone put it on the ground in front of a door for me to find. When I was about to leave, I took it and heard a voice. A soft whisper came from what seemed to be inside the room.
Help me.
I stopped moving, and my heart began to beat hard in my chest. I knew I had to leave the asylum and get as far away as I could. But I had to stay for some reason. When I opened the door and walked in, the room was lit by a weak beam of light from my flashlight. Then I found out. The patient's bed. The sides of the harnesses and every cut, it looked like someone was trying to get out through the holes in the wall behind the bed. I tried to go back and leave, but something stopped me. A hand that's wet and cold. I yelled and fought, but neither of those things helped. Then I began to come to. I was back with everyone else in the big room. Everyone was looking at me with worried faces.
What happened?
I don't know.
I stuttered.
It's possible that I saw something, but I was making it up. But as we explored more of the asylum, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Every now and then, I would catch a glimpse of something moving in the shadows, or hear a faint whisper in my ear. And then, we found it. The room that would confirm our worst fears. The walls were covered in writing. Insane ramblings scrawled in what appeared to be blood. I felt a chill run down my spine as I read the words, my mind struggling to comprehend the horrors that had taken place within these walls. And then, we saw her. A ghostly figure hovering in the corner of the room. She was dressed in a hospital gown, her hair matted and tangled. We all froze, our eyes fixed on the apparition. And then, she spoke.
Help me.
she said, her voice barely above a whisper.
Please, help me.
We were all paralyzed with fear, unsure of what to do. And then she began to move towards us, her eyes fixed on mine. I tried to turn and run, but my legs wouldn't obey. I was rooted to the spot, my mind consumed by terror. And then she was gone. Just like that, she vanished into thin air. We all looked at each other, unsure of what had just happened. And then Michael spoke up.
We need to leave.
He said, his voice trembling with fear.
Now.
We all nodded in agreement and began to make our way towards the exit. But as we walked, I couldn't help but feel that we were being watched. And then we saw them. The figures stood in the hallway, their eyes fixed on us. They were patients, or at least they had been. But now, they were something else. Something twisted and evil. We tried to run, but they were too fast. They cornered us in a room, their eyes fixed on us with a hunger that was all too familiar. I don't remember much after that. Just flashes of pain and terror. But somehow, we managed to escape. As we stumbled out into the sunlight, we all looked back at the asylum. And in that moment, we knew that we had uncovered something far more terrifying than we could have ever imagined. We stumbled out of the abandoned asylum, shaken and terrified by the horrors we had witnessed. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, even as we made our way to the car. Once we were safely inside, I tried to shake off the fear that was gripping me. But it was no use. The presence of evil still lingered, like a foul stench that refused to dissipate. As we drove away from the asylum, I couldn't help but feel like we had left something behind. Something dark and malevolent was now free to roam the halls of the abandoned building. I couldn't shake the feeling that we had unleashed something terrible, something that we were not meant to disturb. And then it happened. The car began to shake, as if something were trying to rip it apart. The windows shattered, showering us with glass. And then I saw it. A figure stood in the middle of the road, its eyes fixed on us with a hunger that was all too familiar. It was one of the patients from the asylum, or at least it had been. Now, it was something entirely different. Something dark and twisted, with a hunger for human flesh. We tried to reverse, but it was too late. The figure was upon us, its claws tearing through the metal of the car like it was butter. We were trapped, with nowhere to run. And then it spoke.
Welcome back.
It said, its voice filled with malice.
We've been waiting for you.
I screamed, my mind consumed by terror. This was it. The end. But then a miracle happened. The figure was pulled away from the car, as if by an unseen force. And then it was gone. We all sat there, stunned and unsure of what had just happened. And then Michael spoke up.
We need to figure out what's going on.
He said in a scared voice.
This is too important to just ignore.
I agreed with him, so I nodded. We couldn't let something so bad go. We had to find a way to stop it, no matter what. So we went back to the mental hospital. Even though I knew it was a bad idea, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had to face this evil head. As we went back into the asylum, it seemed like the darkness was closing in on us. There was a strong smell of decay in the air, and I could hear people whispering all around us. We went to the room where the ghostly figure had been to find out what was going on. But what we found was much worse than we thought. We had seen the same crazy ramblings on the walls before, but this time there was something new. The wall had a mark that looked like blood had been scratched into it. As soon as I saw the symbol, I started to break out in a cold sweat. It was the mark of the devil, a sign that evil was growing here. Then I heard whispering again. There were a lot of voices talking at the same time all around us.
Now we've got you.
They said in an angry tone.
You can never leave here.
I knew right away that things were very bad for us. I could never have imagined how strong the evil that was growing here would be. When I looked at my friends, I realized that we were all in this together. We had to find a way to stop this evil, no matter what. When I turned around to exit the room, I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye as I was walking out the door. I swiftly turned around, but there was nobody or nothing in that direction. My heart was racing, and I could feel beads of sweat forming on my forehead. My chest was becoming increasingly tight. Was it my imagination, or did I feel like I was being watched by something in this asylum? I gave myself a shake to get rid of the feeling and continued walking down the corridor. I became aware that the temperature in the room was dropping and that the musty odor was becoming more pronounced. It seemed as though the shadows were encircling me, and it took a lot of effort on my part to keep my nerves from becoming too frazzled. As I proceeded deeper into the asylum, all of a sudden I became aware of a loud noise emanating from one of the rooms. It sounded as though something heavy had just crashed to the ground below. I was aware of the beating of my heart all the way up in my throat because it was so intense. As I made my way cautiously closer to the room, I peered inside and caught a glimpse of something that sent shivers down my spine. A figure could be seen huddled in the far corner, its eyes shining brightly in the dim light. It was a person, but there was something strange about the way they were acting. They were slouched over, and their bodies were contorted in ways that were not natural. I made an effort to get away from them, but my foot got caught on something, and I fell. When the figure's head turned to face me, I could see that its eyes were filled with an unfathomable rage. The figure's eyes were looking directly at me. As soon as I turned around and heard the creature's footsteps following me, my heart started racing and I started running. I had no choice but to get out of there before it was too late for me. The sound of the creature's claws scraping against the concrete floor could be heard as I ran down the hallway at full speed. I was aware that it was getting closer to me, and that time was running out for me to do anything about it. I had just about given up hope when I caught sight of a sliver of hope off in the distance. I gave it everything I had to get closer to it, and my legs were on fire from the effort. As I got closer, I saw that it was a door and continued to approach it. I yanked it open with both hands and staggered out into the open, struggling to take a breath. When I turned around to look at the asylum again, I was struck by the menacing sense that its presence was pressing down on me. I was aware that I had a responsibility to inform other people about what I had witnessed, and I was also aware that I had a responsibility to do everything in my power to ensure that nobody ever went back to that location again. The battle for survival had not even begun to be won. I needed to be ready for anything that might happen after I entered the asylum because it held many more secrets. As I walked through the dark corridors, I could feel the fear creeping up inside me. The presence of evil was stronger than ever before. My mind was clouded with confusion and terror. The past events kept flashing in my mind, replaying the horror I had witnessed in this abandoned asylum. I could hear the footsteps of my fellow explorers, John and Sarah, echoing in the hallway. We had been separated for a brief moment, and now we were trying to find each other. The darkness was consuming us, and we could barely see a few feet in front of us. Suddenly, I heard a blood-curdling scream from Sarah. I could feel my heart pounding, and my hands were shaking uncontrollably. I started to run in the direction of the scream, hoping to find my friends and get out of this nightmare. As I turned the corner, I saw a figure standing in the distance. It was dark, and I couldn't make out who or what it was. My gut feeling told me that this was not a human. It was something else, something evil. I heard John calling out to me, and I ran towards him. We finally found each other, and we were relieved to see that Sarah was with him. She was badly injured, and we knew we had to get out of the asylum as soon as possible. We started to run towards the exit, but we were blocked by something. It was a figure, and this time I could see it clearly. It was a ghost, and it was blocking our way out. We knew we had to confront it. We had come too far to let this evil win. I took a deep breath, and we stood together, facing the ghost. It was a tense moment, and we didn't know what to expect. Suddenly, the ghost started to move towards us. Its presence was overwhelming, and we could feel the coldness of its touch. But we didn't back down. We fought with all our might, and we were able to banish the ghost back to where it belonged. We finally made it out of the asylum, but we were forever changed by this experience. We had confronted the darkness and come out alive. But the memory of this night would stay with us forever. Days have passed since our terrifying experience at the abandoned asylum, but the memory of that night still haunts me. I can't shake the feeling that something is not right. Something is still lingering, and I can't quite put my finger on it. Strange things have been happening since then. I hear whispers in the dead of night, and shadows move in the corners of my vision. I feel like I am being watched, like someone or something is following me. I have tried to brush it off as paranoia, but I can't ignore the signs anymore. It's like the darkness has followed me back, and it's not done with us yet. I talked to John and Sarah, and they have been experiencing similar things. They, too, feel like they are being watched and followed. We are all afraid, but we know that we have to confront this once again. We decided to go back to the asylum to find out what we missed and uncover the truth about what happened there. We know it's risky, but we can't live in fear forever. We have to face our demons and conquer them. The journey back to the asylum is filled with dread and anticipation. We don't know what we will find, but we know that it won't be easy. We are ready for whatever awaits us. As we approach the entrance, the air becomes thick with a sense of foreboding. We take a deep breath and step inside. The darkness welcomes us back, and we know that we have returned to the place where nightmares come to life. The story might be over, but the nightmare is not.
That's all for today's exploration of the abandoned asylum. We sincerely hope that your journey with us through this dark and haunted place was just as fascinating to you as it was to us. If you are interested in viewing more videos similar to this one, make sure to subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell so that you are notified whenever we upload a new video about an exploration. Leave a comment below with any ideas you have for additional locations that you think would be interesting for us to check out. We are always excited to get feedback from our viewers, and we look forward to taking you on even more exciting adventures in the future. We'll see you in the next video, and we want to say thank you for watching.